Commander Marcus Chen stood in the doorway of his daughter's empty laboratory. 3 months had passed since Sarah disappeared, but he still couldn't bring himself to enter the room.
Ow.
Her coffee mug sat on the desk, half empty and covered in green mold. Her notebooks lay open, filled with sketches of alien plant life and excited notes about the upcoming diplomatic mission. She was so happy, Marcus whispered to himself, running his fingers along the doorframe. So damn excited to meet them. The Zephyrians had arrived 6 months ago. Their massive ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark clouds, blocking out the sun for 3 days. The world held its breath, waiting for invasion. Instead, the aliens sent a simple message. We come in peace. We wish to share knowledge. Sarah had been one of the first scientists chosen for the cultural exchange program, at 28. She was the youngest xenobiologist on the team, but also the brightest. Marcus remembered her last video call, her brown eyes sparkling with curiosity. Dad, you should see their technology. They've solved problems we've been working on for decades. They want to learn about our biology too. This could change everything for humanity. That was the last time he heard her voice. To the window overlooking the research station's landing pad, the morning sun cast long shadows across the empty concrete. This place had been chosen for the human Zephyrian exchange program because it was far from Earth's major cities. If something went wrong, the damage would be limited. Something had gone very wrong. Commander Chen? A voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Torres stood in the hallway holding a datapad. Sir, you need to see this. Marcus turned away. From the window, what is it? The communication logs from the diplomatic mission. I've been analyzing them for weeks. Torres handed him the pad. Sir, I think the Zephyrians have been lying to us. Marcus took the device and scrolled through the data. The official report said that Dr. Sarah Chen and her team had been lost in a navigational accident near the Zephyrian homeworld. Their shuttle had supposedly drifted into an unstable wormhole. No survivors, no wreckage. Just gone.
Look at this.
Torres pointed to a section of the log. The last transmission from the shuttle. It wasn't a distress call about navigation problems. Listen, she pressed play. Sarah's voice filled the room, crackling with static. Bays, this is Dr. Chen. We're approaching the Zephyrian homeworld. Everything looks normal. The escort ships are ... Wait, they're not taking us to the planet. They're heading towards some kind of structure, it looks like. ... Like a prison. Base, do you copy? Something's not right here. They're not answering our questions. Base, please respond. The message cut off with a burst of static. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. This isn't in the official report. No, sir. Buried. It deep in the system files. I only found it because I've been looking for 3 months. Torres met his eyes. Commander, I don't think your daughter is dead. I think she's been captured. Marcus read through the data again, his military training. Taking over, the evidence was clear. The Zephyrians had lied about the accident. They had taken the human delegation somewhere, and Earth's government had accepted their story without question. Ow. Why would they do this? Marcus asked, though he was already forming theories. I've been researching the Zephyrians' history, Torres said. It claimed to be a peaceful species that explores the galaxy, making contact with other civilizations. But I found something interesting. Every species they've made contact with has either joined their empire or mysteriously disappeared. She pulled up another file on the datapad. The Ethereal Collective. Beautiful, crystalline beings with advanced technology. The Zephyrians made contact with them 50 years ago. Within a decade, the Ethereals were gone.
Out.
The Zephyrians claimed. They destroyed themselves in a civil war. And you don't believe that? The Kaleri Union, the Nemean Republic, the Vorthan Confederacy, all gone within years of first contact with the Zephyrians, all supposedly destroyed by internal conflicts or natural disasters. Torres shook her head. Sir, I think the Zephyrians have been systematically eliminating other species, and I think they're planning to do the same to us. Marcus handed back the datapad. His daughter was out there somewhere, probably suffering, while Earth's politicians shook hands with her captors. The thought made his stomach burn with anger. Have you taken this to command?
Yes, sir.
They said the evidence was inconclusive, and that we couldn't risk our relationship with the Xephrians over unconfirmed suspicions. Torres's voice was bitter. They're more interested in the technology the Zephyrians are sharing than in finding our people. Marcus wasn't surprised. The Zephyrians had given humanity advances in energy production, medicine, and space travel. Earth's leaders were drunk on the possibilities. They wouldn't risk losing that for a few missing scientists. What about the families of the other team members? Marcus asked. They've been told the same story. Most of them have accepted it. A few are asking questions, but ... Tobal quotes. Torres shrugged. What can we do? Marcus walked back to the window. In the distance, he could see a Zephyrian ship approaching the station. The aliens visited regularly now, bringing gifts and knowledge. Each time, Marcus had to smile and shake their hands, pretending he believed their lies about his daughter. I need you to gather everything you can about Zephyrian technology, he told Torres. Their ships, their weapons, their homeworld, everything, sir. If Command won't act, I will. My daughter is alive out there, and I'm going to bring her home. Torres nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Help me plan a rescue mission. It'll be dangerous, probably suicidal. But I won't leave her with those monsters. Count me in, sir. Dr. Chen was, she was, kind to me when I first arrived here. She deserves better than this. Marcus felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He would find Sarah no matter what it took. As the Zephyrian ship landed on the pad below, Marcus made a silent promise to his daughter. I'm coming for you, Sarah. Dad's coming. The ship's doors opened, and 3 tall insectoid figures emerged. Their dark exoskeletons gleamed in the sunlight, and their multifaceted eyes scanned the area with mechanical precision. They moved with the coordinated efficiency of a hive mind, never speaking to each other but always knowing exactly what to do. Marcus watched them approach the station, his hatred growing with each step they took. These creatures had taken his daughter. They had lied to his face. They thought humans were weak, that they could be deceived and controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Zephyrians had made one critical mistake. They had hurt a human's family. And there was nothing more dangerous in the universe than a father who had nothing left to lose. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the station's command center, staring at weapon schematics on his computer screen. Lieutenant Torres had been working day and night, gathering intelligence on Zephyrian technology. The plan was simple and desperate. Steal a shuttle, find the Zephyrian homeworld, and somehow rescue Sarah. It was a suicide mission, but Marcus didn't care. He had already lost everything that mattered. Commander, the communications officer's voice cracked with excitement. Sir, you need to see this. Long-range sensors are picking up an unknown vessel approaching the station. Marcus looked up from his screen. Zephyrian. No, sir, the energy signature is completely different. It's like nothing in our database. Marcus walked to the main display screen. The approaching ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was crystalline, almost transparent, with flowing curves that seemed to shift and change as it moved. Beautiful blue light pulsed through its structure like a heartbeat. Sir, the communications officer continued, they're transmitting on standard human frequencies. They're asking for permission to land. Human frequencies? Marcus frowned. How would an unknown alien species know our communication protocols? I don't know, sir. They're specifically asking to speak with Commander Marcus Chin. Marcus felt his blood run cold. An unknown alien ship asking for him by name. This couldn't be a coincidence. Grant them permission to land, he ordered. But keep all weapon systems on standby. If this is a trap, I want to be ready. Sir Marcus watched the crystalline ship descend toward the landing pad. It moved with impossible grace, making no sound as it touched down. The landing pad sensors showed the ship's weight as almost nothing, as if it were made of air and light. Torres, get a security team to the landing pad, Marcus commanded. Full armor, but weapons lowered. We don't want to seem hostile, but we need to be prepared. Already on it, sir. Marcus grabbed his sidearm and headed for the exit. Whatever was happening, he had a feeling it was connected to Sarah's disappearance. He was going to find out what. The landing pad was bathed in the blue glow from the alien ship. As Marcus approached with his security team, a section of the ship's hull simply melted away, creating a doorway. The technology was beyond anything he had seen, even from the Zephyrians. Two figures emerged from the ship. The first was clearly alien. She stood 7 feet tall, with translucent skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Her hair flowed, like liquid starlight, and her eyes held the depth of ancient oceans. She wore robes that shifted color with her movements, and she radiated a power that made the air itself seem to hum. The second figure made Marcus's heart stop. It was a human. A man in his 30s, wearing a dirty lab coat and clothes that... Marcus recognized Dr. James Morrison, Sarah's research partner, the man who had been declared dead 3 months ago. "Commander Chen," Morrison called out, his voice hoarse but strong. "Thank God we found you." Marcus stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "Dr. Morrison, how? How is this possible? You're supposed to be dead." Morrison smiled grimly. "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Commander. I'd like you to meet Princess Leorile of the Ethereal Collective. She's the one who saved me." The crystalline woman stepped forward and bowed gracefully. When she spoke, her voice was like music. "Commander Chen, I am honored to meet you. Your daughter has spoken of you often." "My daughter?" Marcus's heart began to race. "Sarah is alive?" "Yes," Leorile said simply. "She is alive, and she is extraordinary. But she is also in great danger." Morrison nodded. "Commander, everything the Zephyrians told you was a lie. Didn't kill us. They enslaved us. Enslaved." Marcus struggled to process this information. "What do you mean?" "Zephyrians don't destroy other species," Morrison explained. "They capture them. They break their minds and use them as slaves. They have secret camps all over their territory, filled with beings from dozens of different worlds." Leorile's eyes flashed with anger. "My people were among the first to be taken. The Zephyrians told the galaxy that we had destroyed ourselves in a civil war. In truth, they captured millions of my people and forced them to work in their mines and factories. But you escaped," Marcus said. "Not all of us," Leorile replied sadly. "I am the last of the royal bloodline. I have spent 20 years gathering survivors, building a resistance movement. We have been working in secret, trying to find a way to free our people." Morrison stepped closer to Marcus. "Commander, your daughter isn't just alive. She's become a leader in the human resistance. The Zephyrians made a mistake when they captured us. They thought humans would be easy to control, like the other species they've taken. But they were wrong." "What do you mean?" "Human creativity, Commander. Human stubbornness. You don't give up, even when the situation seems hopeless. Sarah has been studying the Zephyrians for months, learning how their hive mind works, and she's discovered something incredible." Leorile nodded approvingly. "Your daughter has found the key to breaking the Zephyrian control system. She has learned how to restore free will to the enslaved species." Marcus felt a surge of pride, mixed with fear. What has she done? "She's created a weapon," Morrison said. "It's not a physical weapon, but something far more dangerous to the Zephyrians. She's developed a way to spread independent thought through their neural network. A cognitive virus that can free millions of enslaved beings." That's incredible," Marcus said. "But why are you here? Why haven't you used this weapon already?" Morrison's expression grew serious, because it requires a massive sacrifice. Someone has to allow themselves to be fully integrated into the Zephyrian hive mind to deliver the virus from within. The integration process is supposed to destroy the host's personality completely. "And Sarah volunteered," Marcus said quietly. "Yes. She's planning to attempt the integration in 3 days. She succeeds. She freed millions of enslaved beings. But she'll die in the process." Marcus felt his world spinning. His daughter was alive, but she was planning to sacrifice herself to save others. It was exactly the kind of thing Sarah would do. "There has to be another way," he said. Leorile stepped forward. "There might be, but it would require your help, Commander, and the help of your military forces. Tell me what you need." "We need to launch a coordinated attack on the Zephyrian labor camps while Sarah attempts the integration." The distraction might give her a better chance of survival. But more importantly, we need someone with tactical experience to help guide. The Liberation Forces. Morrison nodded. Commander, your daughter has spent months preparing for this. She's taught the other enslaved humans how to think independently, how to resist the Zephyrian control. But she needs her father's help to make this work. Marcus looked at the two figures before him, an alien princess fighting to free her people, and a human scientist who had refused to give up hope. They were asking him to join a war against an enemy that had fooled the entire galaxy. What about Earth? Marcus asked. If we attack the Zephyrians, they might retaliate against our planet. They're already planning to, Lirelei said grimly. The technology they've been sharing with? Your world contains hidden control systems. Within a year, they would have been able to take control of every human on Earth. Marcus felt a cold fury building in his chest. The Zephyrians hadn't just taken his daughter. They had been planning to enslave his entire species. How many ships do you have? He asked. 12, Morrison replied, all crewed by survivors from different species. It's not much against the Zephyrian fleet, but we have something they don't expect. What's that? Lily really smiled, and for the first time since the aliens had arrived, Marcus saw hope in her eyes. We have humans fighting alongside us. And as we have learned, humans are far more dangerous than the Zephyrians ever imagined. Marcus looked back at the research station, then at the crystalline ship. His quiet life was over. His daughter needed him, and an entire galaxy was depending on what happened next. When do we leave? He asked. Now Morrison said, Sarah doesn't know we're coming. She's planning to sacrifice herself because she thinks she's alone. We need to show her that humans never abandon their family. Marcus nodded. Torres called to his lieutenant. Prepare the station for emergency lockdown. We're going to war. As the security team scrambled to follow orders, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Purpose. His daughter was alive, and he was going to bring her home. The journey to Zephyrian space took 18 hours. Marcus spent most of the time learning about the enemy from Princess Lirelei and the other resistance fighters. The crystalline ship carried survivors from 12 different species, each with their own story of capture and enslavement. The Zephyrians call it the Cultural Preservation Program, Morrison explained, as they traveled through hyperspace. They tell the galaxy that they're protecting endangered species by relocating them to safe worlds. In reality, they're building an army of slaves. Marcus studied the tactical displays that Lirelei had provided. The Zephyrian labor camp was hidden on the dark side of Zarian Prime's moon, disguised as a research facility. Long-range scans showed massive underground structures stretching for miles beneath the surface. How many prisoners are we talking about? Marcus asked. At this facility alone, nearly 50,000, Lirelei replied. Beings from dozens of worlds, all supposedly extinct. Zephyrians have been doing this for over a century. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. And the galaxy just accepts their stories about species destroying themselves? The Zephyrians are very convincing, Morrison said bitterly. They provide evidence of civil wars, natural disasters, plague outbreaks. They even create fake historical records. By the time anyone thinks to investigate, the species is gone, and the Zephyrians are the only ones left to tell the story. But you escaped, Marcus pointed out. Not exactly, Morrison replied. I was rescued. Your daughter organized a breakout attempt 2 weeks ago. Most of the prisoners were recaptured, but a few of us made it to the surface. That's where Princess Lirelei found us. Lirelei nodded. My people have been watching the facility for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. When we saw humans escaping, we knew something had changed. Dr. Morrison told us about Sarah's plan, and we realized we had to act quickly. What exactly is my daughter planning to do? Marcus asked. Morrison pulled up a schematic on the ship's display. The Zephyrians control their slaves through neural implants. These devices suppress individual thought and emotion, making the prisoners docile and obedient. But Sarah discovered something the Zephyrians don't know, which is the implants are connected to a central network. Every slave is linked to every other slave through the system. The Zephyrians use this to coordinate work assignments and monitor behavior. But Sarah realized that if you could introduce the right kind of signal, Into the network, you could wake up every slave at once. Marcus felt his military training kicking in. A cognitive virus. She's going to hack their entire control system. Exactly. But there's a problem. The network is protected by multiple layers of security. The only way to access it is from the inside, through direct neural integration. And the integration process destroys the host's mind, Marcus finished. You told me. Sarah has been working on a way to survive the process, Morrison continued. She's developed a quantum storage device that can preserve her consciousness during integration, but it's untested technology. Chances of survival are maybe 10%. Marcus clenched his fists. His daughter was brilliant, but she was also willing to sacrifice herself for others. It was a trait she had inherited from her mother. How much time do we have? He asked. The integration is scheduled for tomorrow night, Lireley said. Sarah, convince the Zephyrians that she wants to join their collective willingly. They think she's given up hope. But she hasn't, Morrison added. She's been preparing for months, teaching the other humans how to resist the implants, how to think independently, even under Zephyrian control. When the virus activates, they'll be ready to fight. Marcus studied the tactical display again. The moon base was heavily defended, with energy shields and automated weapon systems. A direct assault would be suicide. What's the plan? He asked. We create a distraction, Lireley explained. While Sarah attempts the integration, we attack the facility's main power grid. Zephyrians will think it's a standard rescue mission. They won't realize what's really happening until it's too late. And if the virus works, then 50,000 enslaved beings will suddenly remember who they are, Morrison said. They'll turn on their captors from the inside while we attack from the outside. Marcus nodded slowly. It was a good plan, but it relied on too many variables. If Sarah's device failed, if the virus didn't work, if the Zephyrians detected the attack too early, there has to be a backup plan, he said. There is, Lireley replied. If Sarah's integration fails, we evacuate as many prisoners as possible and retreat. But without the virus, the Zephyrians will just recapture them eventually. Marcus stood up and walked to the ship's observation window. In the distance, he could see the Zephyrian star system growing larger. Somewhere in that darkness, his daughter was preparing to sacrifice herself for the freedom of others. I want to modify the plan, he said. Commander. Morrison looked confused. The integration process. Sarah doesn't have to do it alone. Marcus turned back to face them. What if we could create a dual consciousness scenario? Two minds sharing the same neural pathway. Lireley's eyes widened. That's theoretically possible. But it would require perfect synchronization between the two subjects. If the timing is off by even a fraction of a second, both minds would be destroyed, Morrison finished. Commander, what are you suggesting? Marcus met his eyes. Suggesting that a father's love might be stronger than Zephyrian technology. Sarah developed the quantum storage device to preserve her consciousness. What if we modified it to work with two people instead of one? You want to share the integration with her? Lireley said. Want to make sure she survives it, Marcus replied. I've been a tactical officer for 20 years. I know how to compartmentalize information, how to maintain multiple operational priorities simultaneously. If anyone can help Sarah navigate the Zephyrian network, it's me. Morrison shook his head. Commander, the risks are enormous. If the dual consciousness fails, you'll both die. And even if it works, there's no guarantee the virus will function properly. There's no guarantee it will work with Sarah alone either, Marcus pointed out. At least this way, she has backup. Lireley stood up and began pacing. The modifications would take hours. We'd need to recalibrate the quantum storage device, create a secondary neural interface, synchronize the integration timing, ... Can it be done? Marcus asked. Maybe, but we'd need Sarah's help. She's the only one who fully understands the technology. Marcus smiled grimly. Then we better hope she's still willing to accept help from her old man. The ship's communication system chimed. The pilot's voice came over the intercom. Princess, we're approaching the Zarian system. Long-range sensors are detecting heavy Zephyrian patrol activity. Acknowledged, Lireley replied. Ash! She turned to Marcus. Commander, are you sure about this? Once we enter Zephyrian space, there's no turning back. Marcus looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, his daughter was waiting. She thought she was alone, that she had to sacrifice herself to save others. But she was wrong. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, he said. Sarah isn't going to face this alone. That's what family is for, and we better get to work, Morrison said. We have a lot of modifications to make and not much time to do it. As the ship slipped into Zephyrian space, Marcus felt a familiar calm settle over him. It was the same feeling he'd had before every major military operation. The knowledge that he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. His daughter needed him. Nothing in the universe was going to stop him from reaching her. The labor camp looked peaceful from the outside. Clean white buildings sat on the moon's surface, surrounded by beautiful gardens and recreational areas. To any observer, it would seem like a paradise resort, not a prison holding 50,000 enslaved beings. Marcus crouched behind a rocky outcrop, watching Zephyrian guards patrol the perimeter. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, their insect-like bodies covered in dark armor. They never spoke to each other, communicating through their hive mind, connection instead. The entrance to the underground facility is 300 meters ahead, Morrison whispered, pointing to a maintenance shaft. Sarah should be in Laboratory Complex C, preparing for the integration. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. The modified quantum storage device was strapped to his chest, its blue lights pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Princess. Lirelei had worked for 6 hours straight to modify the technology, creating a dual consciousness system that had never been tested. Are you ready for this? Lirelei asked through his earpiece. She was positioned on a hill overlooking the facility. Coordinating the resistance fighters who would create the distraction? As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus replied. What's the status on the other teams? Team Alpha is in position near the power grid. Team Beta is ready to assault the main communication array. When you give the signal, we'll hit both targets simultaneously. Marcus nodded. The plan was simple. Create enough chaos to mask his infiltration, find Sarah, and somehow convince her to accept his help with the integration. If everything went perfectly, they would free 50,000 slaves and escape before. The Zephyrians could retaliate. Of course, nothing ever went perfectly in war. Remember, Morrison said, once you're inside, you'll have maybe 30 minutes before the Zephyrians realize this isn't a standard rescue attempt. After that, they'll activate full lockdown protocols. Understood. Marcus checked his weapon. One last time. If this goes wrong, ... It won't, Morrison interrupted. Sarah is the smartest person I know. And you're her father. Together, you can do anything. Marcus hoped he was right. All teams? This is Commander Chen, Marcus said into his radio. Begin Phase 1. In the distance, explosions lit up the night sky. The power grid erupted in sparks and flames as the resistance fighters destroyed the main generators. Emergency. Lights flickered on throughout the facility, bathing everything in red. Zephyrian guards rushed toward the attack, their formation perfect despite the chaos. Marcus used the distraction to sprint toward the maintenance shaft. Behind him, he could hear the sound of energy weapons as the battle began. The shaft led to a maze of tunnels beneath the facility. Marcus had memorized the layout during the journey, but navigating in the dark was more difficult than he had expected. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and the sound of alarms echoed through the corridors. Level B7, Marcus muttered to himself, checking his position. Laboratory Complex C should be just ahead. He rounded a corner and froze. A Zephyrian guard stood in the hallway, its back turned to him. The alien was 7 feet tall, with razor-sharp claws and armor that seemed to absorb light. Marcus had never seen one up close before. The guard turned slowly, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the Zephyrian opened its mouth and let out a piercing shriek. Marcus didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired 3 quick shots. The energy bolt struck the alien in the chest, sending it crashing to the floor. But the shriek had been a warning call. Within seconds, Marcus could hear the sound of running feet echoing through the tunnels. So much for stealth, he muttered, breaking into a run. The laboratory was 2 levels down. Marcus found the stairs and descended as quickly as he could. The sound of pursuit growing louder behind him, he burst through the door marked Laboratory Complex C and found himself in a vast underground chamber. The sight that greeted him took his breath away. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different species worked at computer terminals and laboratory benches. They moved with the same mechanical precision as the guards, their eyes blank and lifeless. Neural implants glowed at the base of their skulls, connecting them to the Zephyrian hive mind. But in the center of the chamber, Marcus saw something that made his heart race. A group of humans worked at a specialized terminal, their movements different from the others. They still had the implants, but there was something alive in their eyes. Something the Zephyrians had failed to suppress. In leading them was Sarah. She was thinner than Marcus remembered, her brown hair now streaked with gray. The neural implant at the base of her skull pulsed with an angry red light. But when she looked up and saw him, her eyes widened with recognition and hope. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise of the laboratory. Marcus ran to her, pulling her into a fierce hug. "I'm here, Sarah. I'm here. How did you? How is this possible?" Tears ran down her face. "They told me you. We're dead. They showed me footage of Earth being destroyed." "They lied," Marcus said simply. "Just like they lied about everything else. Morrison is alive. Princess Lirelei is alive. And we're here to get you out." Sarah pulled back, shaking her head. "Dad, you don't understand. The integration is tonight. If I don't go through with it, thousands of people will die. The Zephyrians are planning to expand their slave operations to Earth. This is the only way to stop them." "I know," Marcus said. "But you don't have to do it alone." He showed her the modified quantum storage device. Sarah's eyes widened as she examined the technology. "Dual consciousness integration," she breathed. "This is incredible. ... Are worth it if it means you survive," Marcus finished. "Sarah, I've spent 3 months thinking you were dead. I'm not going to lose you again." Around them, the other human prisoners watched with growing excitement. Spreading through the group like wildfire. "The modifications look solid," Sarah said, her scientific mind taking over. "But we'll need to synchronize our brain patterns before the integration, and the timing has to be perfect. And we better get started," Marcus replied. "How long do we have?" 20 minutes, Sarah said. "The Zephyrians will expect me in the integration chamber soon. If I'm late, they'll send guards to collect me." She led him to a nearby terminal and began typing rapidly. "I'll need to upload the virus to both devices. If this works, we'll be able to navigate the Zephyrian network together. Your tactical training should help us avoid their security systems. And if it doesn't work," Sarah met his eyes. "Then we die together, but at least we'll die as a family." Marcus nodded. "That's more than I could have hoped for 3 months ago." The sound of explosions echoed through the chamber. The distraction was working, but Marcus knew they were running out of time. Soon, the Zephyrians would realize that the power grid attack was just a diversion. "It's Tara," he said. "There's something else you need to know. The integration won't just free the slaves. Here, Princess Lirelei has been preparing resistance cells throughout Zephyrian space. If we succeed, we'll trigger a galaxy-wide rebellion." Sarah's eyes lit up. A coordinated uprising. "Dad, that's brilliant. But the Zephyrians have contingency plans. If they detect widespread rebellion, they'll activate a quantum weapon that can sterilize entire star systems." "Then we'll have to make sure they don't get the chance," Marcus said grimly. The terminal beeped, indicating that the virus upload was complete. Sarah handed him one of the modified devices. "Ready?" she asked. Marcus looked at his daughter, so brave and determined despite everything she had endured. She was willing to sacrifice herself for the freedom of others, just like her mother had been. "Ready?" he said. Together, they walked toward the integration chamber, where the fate of the galaxy would be decided. The integration chamber was a nightmare of organic technology and cold metal. Massive cables snaked across the ceiling, pulsing with bioluminescent energy. In the center of the room stood 2 pods filled with thick green fluid. Neural interface. Cables hung from the ceiling like the legs of a giant spider. "The Zephyrians will monitor the integration remotely," Sarah explained as they approached the pods.
Oh.
They think they're adding one more mind to their collective. They have no idea. We're about to poison their entire network. Marcus examined the pods with a soldier's eye for detail. How long will the process take? The initial integration is almost instantaneous. But spreading the virus through their entire network could take up to an hour. We'll need to stay connected the whole time, guiding the signal through their security systems. And if we're discovered, Sarah's expression grew grim. They'll try to purge us from the system. If that happens, our minds will be destroyed completely. No quantum storage device can protect us from a direct neural attack. Marcus nodded. He had faced death before, but never like this. This time, he wouldn't just be risking his life, he would be risking his very soul. The other human prisoners, he said. What happens to them when the virus activates? They'll remember who they are, Sarah replied. The neural implants will still be active, but the suppression protocols will be disabled. They'll have their free will back, and they'll fight. Oh yes. Sarah smiled for the first time since he had found her. Dad, you have no idea how angry these people are. They've been forced to build weapons for their captors, to help enslave other species. When they remember what's been done to them, an explosion shook the chamber, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Through the walls, Marcus could hear the sound of energy weapons and shouting voices. Princess Liralay's distraction is working, he said, but we're running out of time. Sarah began activating the integration pods. The green fluid bubbled and churned as the systems came online. Dad, I need you to know something. Even if we survive this, we might not be the same people when we come out. The Zephyrian network will leave traces in our minds. I don't care, Marcus said simply. As long as you're alive, I can deal with anything else. They climbed in too. The pods together. The fluid was warm and strangely comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket. Neural cables descended from the ceiling, seeking the connection points at the base of their skulls. Remember, Sarah said, her voice echoing strangely. In the chamber, we're not just father and daughter in there. We're two tactical minds working as one. Trust your instincts and trust me. Always, Marcus replied. The cables made contact, and the world exploded into light. Marcus found himself floating in a vast digital ocean. Information flowed around him like currents of liquid light, carrying the thoughts and experiences of millions of enslaved minds. The Zephyrian hive mind was enormous, stretching across dozens of star systems. Sarah appeared beside him, her consciousness glowing with determined purpose. Can you see it? She asked. Marcus looked around in wonder. The network was like a massive city of light, with data flowing along predetermined pathways. Were dark areas, too, places where the light seemed dimmed or corrupted. The suppression zones, Sarah explained. That's where they're keeping the enslaved minds. We need to reach the central control node and inject the virus there. Began moving through the network, following Sarah's carefully mapped route. But as they traveled deeper into the system, Marcus sensed something watching them. We've been detected, he said. Suddenly, the peaceful flow of information became a raging storm. Security programs materialized around them like digital sharks, programmed to destroy any foreign presence in the network. This way, Sarah shouted, pulling him toward a cluster of data streams. They dove into the flow, using Marcus's tactical training to outmaneuver the pursuing programs. But there were too many of them, and more were appearing every second. The central node is just ahead, Sarah said, but we'll never make it through. Their defenses. Marcus studied the security network with a soldier's eye. The programs were following predictable patterns designed to protect the system from external attack. But they weren't prepared for something like this. Two minds, working in perfect synchronization. Sarah, can you fragment the virus into smaller pieces? Yes, but why would we... double quotes. Trust me, Marcus said. Fragment it into 1,000 pieces. We'll create a distraction while you scatter them throughout the network. Sarah's consciousness pulsed with understanding. A distributed attack. Dad, that's brilliant! But the fragments will need to activate simultaneously, or the Zephyrians will detect them. Leave that to me, Marcus replied. He separated from Sarah and charged directly. At the central control node, drawing the attention of every security program in the network, They swarmed around him like angry wasps, tearing at his consciousness with digital claws. But Marcus had faced worse odds in real combat. He used every tactical trick he knew, leading the programs on a chase through the darkest corners of the network. Behind him, Sarah worked frantically to plant virus fragments in thousands of different locations. "It's done," she called out. "All fragments are in position." "Then let's light this thing up," Marcus replied. Together, they triggered the virus. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Across the Zephyrian network, the virus fragments activated, simultaneously spreading like wildfire through the digital pathways. The suppression protocols began failing one by one, freeing enslaved minds that had been trapped for decades. In the real world, the results were even more dramatic. Marcus opened his eyes in the integration pod and heard the most beautiful sound imaginable, the sound of 50,000 voices crying out in triumph and rage. Throughout the facility, enslaved beings were remembering who they were, and they were not happy about what had been done to them. Emergency alarms wailed as the prisoners turned on their captors. Energy weapons fire echoed through the corridors as former slaves fought back with improvised weapons and sheer determination. "Dad," Sarah's voice was weak, but alive.
"Did we
"Do it?" Marcus climbed out of his pod and helped her from hers. Through the chamber's observation windows, he could see Zephyrian guards running in panic as their perfect order collapsed into chaos. "We did it," he said, pulling her into a hug. "We actually did it." Their celebration was cut short by Morrison's voice crackling through Marcus's radio. "Commander, need to get out of there now. The Zephyrians are activating some kind of weapon system." Marcus helped Sarah to her feet. She was weak from the integration, but her eyes were clear and focused. "The quantum weapon," she said. "They're going to try to destroy everything rather than lose control. Can we stop it?" Sarah smiled, and Marcus saw something new in her expression, a connection to the vast network they had just liberated. "Dad, we're not alone anymore. Every freed mind in the galaxy is working together now, and humans just taught them something very important." "What's that?" "How to fight back." Across Zephyrian space, the liberated species turned their anger and their newfound freedom into action. Ships that had been used to transport slaves became weapons of rebellion. Facilities that had been used to break minds became command centers for revolution. And at the heart of it all, a father and daughter walked out of a nightmare together, knowing that they had given the galaxy something the Zephyrians could never understand or defeat: hope. The age of Zephyrian domination was over. The age of freedom had begun. And it had all started with a human who refused to give up on family.